What's up, internet friends? Jeff from Real PDX here, and today I want to talk about the cost of living in Portland, Oregon. And I don't mean just the cost of living, I mean the cost of living in Portland, Oregon. It's one of the biggest questions I get asked as a real estate agent is like, if I'm moving to Portland, what's it going to cost me? And I don't mean just in the sense of housing, but everything, utilities, food, all that stuff. And so this is going to be a little bit longer video than normal. I'm going to go through it as fast as I can. I'm also going to put down in the description chapters so you can kind of see the sections and you can buzz through at your leisure. But I want this to be the most in-depth video you've ever watched about what it really costs to live here in Portland, Oregon. So, without further ado, cost of living index is kind of something, it's on a national level, and really the way it works is like the national level is at 100. So the baseline is 100. That's the average. Anything above that means it's expensive, more expensive than the average, and anything below that means it's less expensive. Like, that's common sense stuff, basically. So when we look at these indexes, we compare different cities. And so in this video, I'm also going to compare what it costs to live in Portland to a couple other cities, Seattle and San Francisco, kind of two of the West Coast biggies. So really, what I want to start with is just Portland versus Oregon, and then Portland versus the national average. And so if I go to the stats, I see like basically Portland overall, the cost of living index is generally right around 130. So again, anything above 100 means it's a little more expensive than the average. The average in Oregon as a whole, and this is overall cost of living, is just over 100. I think it's 113 right now. And this is all based on 2019 data. So as we head into 2021 now, in the next 6 months or whenever, that data is going to be updated. I'll do another video, whatever. So again, Oregon is a little more expensive than the national average, and then Portland is a little more expensive than Oregon as a whole average. When we break this thing down into things like grocery, health, housing, and all that, you'll start to see where the differences are. And so just going down the list, the grocery expenses in Portland, they're just a little bit higher than the national average, 103, it's 103.7. Oregon as a whole is just barely over the national average, it's 100.4. Cost of health, and when I say cost of health, that's things like health care, going to the hospital, just kind of the standard living things when it comes to health expenses. Oregon's actually lower than the national average at 88, and then Portland is even lower than that at 85.9. So we have really good health care options, and in the sense of like Zoom cares and maybe things like that some of the other states maybe don't have. Then we jump back up to the housing costs, and so this obviously is my area of expertise. Housing in Portland is quite a bit more expensive than the national average. It's 181.5 on that index. Oregon as a whole is just under 150, so I think it's 149-ish. So again, Portland's more expensive. I think Portland's probably the most expensive place to live in Oregon. And then within Portland, there's all of these different areas. We've got like Lake Oswego, West Lynn area. Those are way higher than the average of Portland as a whole. Bethany and even some of the West Hills, the downtown Pearl condo area. Those are a little bit higher than the average of Portland Metro as a whole as well. So if we break things down even further, there's all the different neighborhoods that we can go down to. But I'm just talking about today Portland as a whole. So the housing index is 181.5, obviously higher than the national and higher than Oregon average. Median home cost, as I mentioned in one of my other videos, has been creeping up steadily, which, it's a good thing when you're a homeowner, right? But the median home cost right now in Portland is $419,600 if you want to get really technical. Oregon as a whole is $344,000 roughly, and then the national average is just over 230. I think it's 231,500, something like that. So again, the median house in Portland is a lot more expensive than Oregon and the rest of the United States. Obviously, there's all of these different areas. You'll see when I talk about San Francisco and LA that those are drastically different than us here, and Portland is actually a really good deal. So when it comes to things like on the other side of home ownership, and I mentioned this before too, the utilities and some of the costs of owning a home in Portland, even though the median price is a little higher than the rest of Oregon, the utilities and stuff like that are actually a lot lower. So we're at just under 80 on that index, 79.9 here in Portland, because we've got the initiatives of like the clean air initiatives. We've got the rivers and the windmill farms and all of that stuff, creating a lot more viable options for the electricity side of things, especially to make those a little more affordable for people. So in Oregon as a whole, it's 81, and then again, national average is 100. Transportation, kind of the same deal as housing. It's a little bit higher cost here in Portland, 129.9 that index comes in at. Oregon as a whole is 107. And then they throw in the miscellaneous category, and I'm going to go break that down a lot more in depth here in a second. But miscellaneous, just food, buying clothes, all that kind of stuff. Portland is at 113, and then Oregon is actually tipping the scale underneath the average at 97. So again, I'm going to break that down here in a second. But I want to now shift over to comparing Portland to Seattle, kind of the cost of living versus those two. And I didn't mention this, that like these don't include taxes and childcare and stuff like that. You can get that kind of information. I can get it for you. If it's something that you're interested in, just hit me up, let me know. But when I start comparing Portland to Seattle, start seeing things on a different scale too. The overall index, again, being a homeowner, no childcare, taxes not considered, Portland's a lot lower than Seattle. So index, again, 100% or 100 is the baseline. Portland at 130, Seattle at 172. So just overall living in Seattle costs a lot more. Food and groceries, Portland's at 103, Seattle's at 108. Housing is where the big difference happens in all of these metros that we're talking about. So housing, Portland, like I mentioned, 180-ish. Seattle, Washington, just over 300. So obviously it's a big difference there. Median home cost of Portland, I mentioned, 419, 714 in Seattle. Big jump again. $294,000 difference right there. So yes, 70% increase, whatever that is roughly. Utilities in Seattle are a little bit lower even than here in Portland. So interesting thing up there, same deal. They've got rivers, oceans, wind farms, all this stuff going on to make the electricity be a little bit cheaper. So transportation in Seattle is a little bit more than Portland. It's at 137 versus our 129. And then the healthcare, we're right about the same. We're almost damn near equal. 85% or 85.9, 85.2. And then the miscellaneous category is a little bit higher. It's at 120 instead of our 113. So Seattle, a little bit more expensive. A couple of things a little bit less. And then housing, boom, it's way more expensive. And we kind of find the same thing if I shift over to San Francisco, California. Overall index cost of living there is 105% higher than Portland. Now this shouldn't be a big surprise to anybody. Like everything in California is more expensive, right? Well, most everything. We'll see. So 130 in Portland as the overall index, 269 in San Francisco. Food and groceries, roughly the same, 103 versus 116. Housing, again, is where this big, huge thing. Again, no surprise, right? We all know housing in San Francisco is ridiculous overpriced, right? 181 in Portland, 596 on that index in San Francisco. So the median home, again, 419 in Portland, 1.378, so 1.4 million is the median in San Francisco. 228% increase there. Utilities, again, Portland, Oregon, 79, a little below national average. San Francisco is technically a little below national average, but it's at 97.5, so it's still higher than Portland. No surprise again. Transportation higher, health costs higher, miscellaneous costs higher. Everything, basically, I believe everything on that list, like I mentioned, is higher in San Francisco. And we kind of see the same thing when I look at LA and San Diego and some of those other cities down in California. Again, no surprise there. Now, I want to break down the actual cost of hitting the streets of Portland. So I mentioned that miscellaneous category. Miscellaneous kind of is a little bit of everything. So they're talking about eating out, going and getting groceries, things like that. So I'm going to break some of those down, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about rents in Portland and kind of what it costs to actually rent versus buy and that kind of thing. So For this miscellaneous category, eating out, and this is just kind of average. These are average prices. It's from a website called livingcost.org. They kind of tally data from all over the place, and they spit this out. And you can do some really cool comparisons between your cities if you want to go check that out. I'll put a link in the description. But basically, eating out in Portland, like if you're going to go eat lunch, costs about $13, $12.70 according to the website. Dinner at a restaurant for two is on average about $52. I want to say, like, I think that's a little low, but maybe that's just because I'm a foodie and I love good food. Because usually when I go out and have dinner for two, depending on where we're going, if we're going out to a decent restaurant, our food and a lot of it's going to be drinks as well. We have whiskey, champagne, whatever it may be. Our bill's usually well over $100. But if you're just going to go have a decent meal somewhere, I'm not thinking like Applebee's or something like that, but that's like a blasphemous thing to say if you live in Portland. But something like that, dinner for two, $52 is average. Fast food meal, something like McDonald's, usually about $8, $7.60 some cents. If you go just to have a beer in one of our pubs, there's so many craft breweries. I'm not a beer guy, as I mentioned in my other videos, but the cost of that is right around $5. It's $5.30 or so. Cappuccinos, $4.45. A lot of cool little craft coffee shops and things like that. There's also the Starbucks and Seattle's Best Coffee and all those things. And then if you're just stopping at a convenience store to get a Coke, if you know me, you know I love the Coca-Cola. $1.99 average price of a Coke. I'm going to shift a little bit and talk again about rent. And I'm actually going to switch back to one of these other sites and pull some data from here. So this one breaks it down. I like this one a little better because bestplaces.net breaks it down by room size, bedroom size. So studio apartment in Portland, average right now is $1,123. And it breaks it down by Portland, the whole metro area, Oregon, and the United States. So Portland as a whole, $1,123. Oregon, $827. United States average, $821. That's for a studio. One bedroom, $1,225, $921, $930. Two bedrooms, $1,432, $1,123, and $1,148. Three bedrooms, $2,073, $1,620, and $1,537. And then bouncing up to a four-bedroom place, $2,516, $1,947, and $1,791. So Portland basically, as I mentioned in the first part of the video, the cost of living expenses for housing is higher than the national and state averages. But that gives you the breakdown by the number of bedrooms. So anywhere from $1,100 up to $2,500 is going to be your general kind of average cost of living in a house or living in an apartment. I'm going to switch back over to talk a little bit more about the rent and utilities, break those down a little bit further even. So, and this one might be a little more up to date because it says a one-bedroom apartment. Well, it's one-bedroom apartment in downtown. So downtown's a little more expensive. They got the high-rise condos and the buildings there. So one-bedroom apartment in downtown Portland is coming in at $1,350. A cheap one-bedroom apartment is just over $1,000 if you can find one. They're pretty damn hard to find. But we've got a lot of new construction going up with apartments, some affordable things kind of popping around the different areas, not necessarily downtown so much, but in the core Portland metro area. A cheap three-bedroom apartment, if you can find one, $1,600 or so. Find a little bit more of those on the outskirts of Portland, not so much in the core area. Like I said, there's still new places coming up, but when I look at those new places, I'm seeing well above $2,000 a month for even just a two-bedroom, some even just the one-bedroom apartments. So then we get into the things of the cost of renting versus buying, and with as low as the rates have been for the last year or so here in the area, there really isn't a good reason to be renting unless you're just in a place for short term. You're going to be moving in 6 months or a year or something like that. But man, when I've done all of the different variations of rent versus buying, right now especially, buying has made a lot more sense for people. So you're ready to buy or sell, give me a call. I got a guy. 503-780-4596 is the number. Call or text. Now I'm going to break down the utilities a little bit more. So utility bill for one person, and this is not including internet. This is usually just electricity, water, gas. Averages right around $110. For a family of 2-3 people, it's obviously a little bit more than that, $175 plus. Internet plans average about $60 a month. I was with Comcast for years, paying way too much money for my cable, internet, and TV stuff. I was paying like $250 a month at one point, and I realized that was just stupid. So I dropped over to CenturyLink, got their gig speed internet. It's like $67 a month. It's 4 times faster than when I was getting at Comcast. Now I can stream TV, so I use Netflix and Hulu and all of those, and I'm still paying way less than I was with Comcast. I'm not going to talk too much about the mortgage interest rates and that kind of stuff. I'll let my mortgage friends talk about that in future videos. But I did mention the average cost of living in a home. Just your average home in a metro area is about $2,500 a month right now, and that's again for a 4-bedroom. So if you're smaller than that, it's going to be a little bit less, as I mentioned. We'll shift over to transportation, and then I'll talk about groceries, and then we're going to wrap this bad boy up in a nice little bow for you. So local transportation, we've got the TriMet, and this was on the pros and cons video I did. So we've got the TriMet, the tram, all sorts of different types of transportation. We're super bike friendly, super walk friendly. But to buy a ticket for any of those things, on average, to get from A to B in Portland is about $2.50. So you're getting on the bus, hopping on the Max, doing whatever. $2.50, $5 if you're going round trip. That apparently is the average in town. If you get the monthly ride tickets, those are $100 plus, obviously different things that you can do for the various different modes of transportation there. Taxi ride, on average, taxi, Uber, Lyft, I'm going to say, those to go from A to B on average in Portland is about $20.10. And then gas right now, interesting, it kind of fluctuates here and there, but I get diesel, so I'm a little spoiled in that sense. It's a little less money. I do have to pump my own, which is totally fine with me, but that's usually right around $2.99 in the core metro area. It gets cheaper as you go out, so I've had diesel up to down to $2.29 as I get further out, 20 miles or so outside of town. When I'm out checking out properties in Damascus or Canby or those places, I usually try to fill up my tank out there because it's way less. So now let's shift to groceries really fast. I'm just going to pop through some of the main things. There's a whole list here. Again, I'll put a link to this in the description, but let's see. And they do it in quarts versus gallons. So a quart of milk, 88 cents. I think that's a little low. When I buy a gallon of milk, usually it's about 2 something. So I guess there's 4 quarts in a gallon, so that is about right. Bread, $2.96 on average. Eggs, $2.97. Cheese is $13 a pound, but who buys a pound of cheese? If you're talking about just slices for cheese and crackers or something like that, we usually buy the little rounds or the little wedges. But let's see, what else we got on this list? Potatoes, $2.38 a pound. Coca-Cola, Pepsi Cola, $2.26. That average is creeping up a little bit. Wine, mid-price bottle of wine here in town, $15.30. Cigarettes, $7. Cold medicine, $8. Toilet paper, that's a big deal right now. Toilet paper is like freaking gold because we're in the middle of this COVID stuff and people are crazy about their toilet paper. But the average for 4 rolls, it says $3.13. I think there's some shenanigans going on where people are going and raising the prices a little bit on the toilet paper and that kind of stuff. They do have like limits, so you can only buy 1 package. It's just crazy right now. But thanks again, COVID. So a couple other things we'll talk about, just some of the fun things. The other category that they have listed, gym membership, they say $38 a month on average. I know there's a place in my neighborhood that's like 19, and then there's some like the Bay Club down south in Tualatin is like 100 and something a month, so that's probably a pretty good average. Movie ticket average, 1 person, $12. Doctor visit average, I don't know if this is with or without insurance, says $151. Haircut's about $19. I need one. I'm getting a little long in the back here. A couple more important things. Daycare, I'm laughing because I'm like brand jeans, $53, and brand sneakers, $91. Those are not important things. But daycare and preschool, 1 month, about $1,200. So those of you with kids, that's something to plan around. Try to find other people that you can team up with or whatever it may be. And then they have listed the international primary school for 1 year is $17,900. Not sure about that one, but if you're sending your kid to international primary school, it's a big chunk of money. So hopefully that gives you a really good idea of what it costs to live here in Portland, above and beyond just the typical stats about home ownership and that kind of stuff. I hope I did a good job of breaking it down as fast as I could, not making this video ridiculously long. If you do have questions, leave a comment. Go ahead and like, share, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing a bunch more videos like this. Leave a comment. I always love responding to comments. And then again, if you're thinking about buying or selling in the Portland metro area, give me a call, shoot me a text. Number is 503-780-4596. I would love to help. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thank you. Take care.